Mr. Ryan Walter, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks. Great to be here.
I am so excited to have this conversation with you. Normally I don't do this, but your background is so extensive and important to the conversation we're about to have. So I wanted to remind the listeners a little bit about your background. So Mr. Walter here has played more than 1,000 games over 15 seasons in the National Hockey League. He was drafted second overall by the Washington Capitals, and he played 9 seasons and won a Stanley Cup with the Montreal Canadiens. Your background is so rich in the NHL, and then you converted and moved into business. You then later got a master's in leadership and business, and the author of 5 books and an expert contributor to both online and print magazines, newspapers, radios, and television. You've won a gold medal as the national head coach of the Canadian Women's National Hockey League or National Hockey Team, and was the assistant coach of the Vancouver Canucks. You've co-founded and the president of 2 startup companies, a TV, radio, hockey analyst, a hockey advisor, and the actor both in television and movies. So you have such a rich background. And the only reason I went through that was because, and we've met before and we've done a session before, and I was just so blown away about how you've been able to architect this information, converting all these lessons from sports and hockey into business and life. And so I'm so excited to have this conversation. I know the listeners are going to learn so much from you. So again, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. Thank you, Ashish.
So one of the things, I guess, let's kind of start in your overall philosophy, right? And you spent a lot of time, you developed this thinking tendencies model. You talk a lot about how if we can learn how to think and how we can process information, and you reference it in the way that almost like a hockey rink looks, and how we think about information and how it affects our reticular activating system and how we emotionally respond to making decisions and choices. Why don't you give us a little bit of background in your philosophy?
Sure. Love the word philosophy, by the way.
Thank you.
I think that it's the pinning, the groundwork, the sort of the underpinning of everything. So one of the things that we found in professional sport is that mindset is really one of the key accelerators of behavior. So if we were to look at the skill of the person and maybe the belief system of the person, there's also a mindset that is absolutely critical. And some people might see mindset around confidence, or the way we hold ourselves, right? The happiness of our life, like all of those things. So what we did, and you and I have experienced this together, is we actually have sort of looked at the 6 mindsets that really, and I'm going to say this carefully, but really run our lives. So the 6 mindsets that are simple and yet powerful. And the reason we did this is awareness. One word: help leaders, help high performers be very aware of their thinking. Because if we can be aware, we can actually change it. And without awareness, we're going to struggle to do that. So, we built the 6 mindset model. We call it the thinking tendencies model. We have about 8 other models that we've built, but we've really enjoyed sharing this one with leaders like yourself.
And and you mentioned awareness, right? And so the 6, I guess, the 6 thinking patterns and how we live our life, right? We talked about it regenerates, activates, flow zone, mindfulness, paralyzes, and deflates. Is that correct?
Yeah. So let me go through those, because you've got great words to describe them. We look at past negative thinking, which is that idea that we're looking backwards, right? We have regrets, we have disappointments. We look at future negative thinking, which is really the worry, the anxiousness, the pessimism, That won't work. We look at past positive thinking, which is really this construct around, thankfulness and wins and great relationships that we remember. And then future positive thinking is the powerful one, right? Mm-hmm. We're looking at the future we want, and we make that happen. In the neutral zone, we have two key mindsets. One is mindfulness. So that's when we're in conscious thought. And one is what we call the flow zone. And that is when we're in non-conscious thought. So those are the 6 mindsets that really go deep. And we've got a 2-day training seminar where we go very deep and we show people how to actually shift their thinking. Be aware and then shift their thinking so they can be in control of their life and not responding to exterior things that come their way.
You taught me one thing called meta-awareness. Can you share with people what meta-awareness is?
Yeah, I sure can. So 2 key words. Now, these are big words for hockey players. The first is meta-awareness, and that's really this idea of being aware of our awareness, right? So that's a simple thought, but it's an absolutely critical thought. I saw recently a quote that said that Fortune 500 companies, the number one way that you can understand or predict the success of a Fortune 500 company is to get a strong understanding of the personal awareness of the CEO. So awareness is powerful. The second word that we talked about is what we call meta cognition. And that's this idea of thinking about thinking, right? So we're actually, in a place where we're not only focused in on our thinking, but we're doing some thinking about our thinking.
That's so amazing. When you bring this content to, let's say, business leaders or CEOs, what is their response? Do most people are pretty receptive to it, or what do you experience when you start telling CEOs you need to start being aware that you're aware, and you start thinking about your thinking, and you need to change the way you make decisions?
Totally. What we're finding is that CEOs across North America now are very much hungry for this type of focus. I'll give you a quick example. I think with the tech and Vistage process, I think I've now spoken to over 3,500 CEOs across North America, and many of those companies we've been asked, invited in to train their leadership teams or their sales teams or whatever. Here's the point, though: is I think that Aristotle, one of the great old timers, said thoughts are causes. Thoughts are causes. If we can't be intentional around helping shape and form and inspire and influence the thinking of our people, we can't lead. So that's really the essence, the ground floor of what we help leaders do.
That's so amazing. Let's get into, why did let me ask you this. I think it's really interesting, and I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and we were talking about how, and this is going to be a little bit of a left turn, but we were talking about how the passing of Kobe Bryant was such an impactful moment for me and the person I was walking with. And one of the things that hit me so hard, and I wasn't really a huge fan, in terms of I didn't know him personally, but when he passed, it hit me so deeply. And the conversation started going to a place of the excellence, the focus, the discipline, the dedication required to be the best, let's call it. We're talking about Tiger Woods, we're talking about Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, the best of the best of the best. There is a sacrifice that is caused by that level of depth and dedication, correct? And with your sports background, I'm sure you can attest to that as well, right? There's personal sacrifice, there's time sacrifice, there's physical sacrifice. And in business, it's similar, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think about, and we live in a capitalistic society, and people judge leaders or CEOs and Wall Street, and that, they grow, they are focused on their business, and there's something else gets sacrificed.
Yeah.
I guess talk to that. Like, what do you see in your experience, or what's really going on in the minds of leaders, both in athletics and in business, that drives that level of dedication? I mean, what are the real sacrifices that are going on?
Love that thought. I would say one of the keys that I've learned through professional sport and professional business is that a focus on excellence rubs off on every part of your life. So if we're excellent in business, or we're excellent, as a father, or we're excellent as a mom, we're excellent, as a doctor, whatever, is that excellence is not taking away from other things. It actually gets us, wanting to be more excellent across the other factors of our lives. And I love that. Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan or any of these people, you think of excellence. Mm-hmm. And I think that's true of business too. Jim Collins, a great business guru years ago, said this: level 5 leaders really come down, they exude 2 characteristics. So this is easy for me, right? You do the math. Level 5, so the top leader does 2 things really well. And I love that. I love the simplicity. Here's what they do. They have a strong will, and they are humble. And those 2 sort of qualities, those 2 key focus points, are the absolute thing that I think of when I think of excellence. So in other words, if you're Michael Jordan, you think of his will. If you're Kobe Bryant, you think of his will. You Tiger Woods, you think of his will. Wayne Gretzky, you think of his will, right? Like they're going to just will it. They're going to make it happen. But you know what I love about all of those names that we just talked about? Humility. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not about me. It's about the team. It's not about me. It's about our family, right? It's not about I'm a great dad. It's about I've got great kids. And I love that concept. And I think the key thing I learned about humility over the last 25 years of training is that humility is not thinking less of yourself. Humility is thinking about yourself less. And so that it's not like we have to go around and say, I'm not good, I'm not good, I'm not good. No, most of those people have to have high confidence, but high confidence doesn't mean high cockiness. It doesn't mean that we look at someone else and put them down. As a matter of fact, it's often the opposite. We look at someone else and we're impressed with who they are.
That's so good. I always wonder that that these extreme athletes, they focus so much on athletics, but there is, even in business, there's a sacrifice either to their personal life or their physical, and people find challenge in harmony, but when you get to the very, very top, it's amazing how they perform, right?
So true. But I love the word excellence because we don't want to be the best business person in the world and lose our marriage and lose our family.
That's right.
Lose our house and lose our wealth and gamble it all away, right? Like at the end of the day, life is not about conquering our area and having nothing to go home to. And so excellence, though, that's why I've noticed excellence rubs off. So when I'm trying to be excellent in an area, I still need to be balanced. I still need to, make sure that I'm I'm trying to be excellent in the area of family. And so I love that word.
Do you find that you're, in the course of your work, especially recently, are you seeing new trends, things that you're surprised about in when you're working with people, whether it be the way that people are treating their employees today versus, let's say, 5 years ago, the way that people are educated today versus, a generation or two ago, the way people invest their time or their resources? Like, what trends are you seeing that are really different today than maybe you would have anticipated or would have expected?
I would say that's a great question. I would say over the last 2 years or so, just certainly during the pandemic, I would say there's been a high focus on energy. Now, I was always sort of focused on energy, coming from professional sport. You look at what's the energy of your team? What's the energy of your players? But I think that professional business has really been fixated over the last 18 months on the energy. And really, making sure that through this difficult time, this time of high change, that we find ways to energize our people, whether they're working at home, they're working in the office, they're working at Starbucks or wherever. And so that focus on energy has been huge. I do a lot of executive coaching right now, and we're doing lots of Zoom training, some in-person training. And what I'm finding is that leaders want a strong focus on how to lead energy, and they want tips and they want skill development around how cultures can re-energize. Because I think at the end of the day, I think that, yes, time is important, but really time is not the key figure, right? Energy is the key component to high performance. And so do we have positive energy? Do we have negative energy, right? Do we energize people? Do we suck energy out of people? And I think that's been a real trend that I've noticed at the leadership level.
I love it. And let's just lean into that because I could not agree with you more. The obvious question is, well, give us one or two tips of things that we could do to stimulate positive energy. And before you answer that, the thing that I think about when I think about energy, especially during these uncertain times, I'll call it, is that energy can't be controlled. And I'd love you to kind of rebut me, but I guess the way I look at it is hard to control energy, it's hard to contain it, but you can definitely feel whether you're giving energy or taking energy away. Does that make sense? I look at energy sort of like a battery, but go ahead. I'd love your insight.
Love that. I love that idea. Someone once said to me, the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer. So it's really easy to tell the temperature, to take the temperature. I've got a cold culture, or that person is sucking energy. It's not as easy to be the thermostat, where you're dialing it up, dialing it down, trying to figure that out. Two quick thoughts, though, very practical, very simple skills that leaders can utilize now, today, this minute. Number one, won't surprise you, is you gotta be what you say. So in other words, it's easy to tell people to get more energy, but they're watching your energy. And I think that as a leader, we have to first find ways to keep our energy up. And that's my great challenge to leaders today. This is not the time to get tired.
Right.
This is the time to energize. And I don't know if you have to work out more, if you have to have more family time, if you have to read better books, if you have to, whatever you have to do that energizes you, do it now, because everybody else is losing energy. We as leaders need to be gaining energy. So we need to be it first and then say it. Number two, and I think it's just such a simple thought, but so powerful, is we need to be highly aware and highly intentional around our language. So, some of the work that you and I have done together, we actually talked about this concept that language creates reality.
Mm-hmm.
One more time, language creates reality. And so as a leader, are we leading with language? Are we utilizing energized language? Are we negative with our language? Are we pulling people down with our language, right? And would we agree, and I know you agree, but would your friends and your people listening agree that there's emotional language, there's body language, there's internal language, and then there's cultural language that we say. But the things that we say to ourselves get replicated in the things that we say to people. So language for me is a powerful reminder of, language mindset. They go together, but a powerful reminder of things that I can do to try to increase energy throughout my people.
I love that. And let me be devil's advocate, right? Because if I'm listening and I'm like, I get it, I totally love that. I want to be more intentional with my language. I want to harness more energy and show up with more energy. But Ryan, not everything is nice all the time. There's issues, there's challenges, there's stress, there's all these worldly things I can't control. I'm just telling a story, right? What, and I can do this as well, is we as leaders can show up perhaps with a lot of energy, but we can also show up with a lot of intensity.
Yes.
And I think that at least I'm victim to this, that I'm not shy of being able to harness and capture my own energy. And I'd love you to share with the audience sort of how you do that. Like, do you have a morning routine that allows you to do that or whatever? But, I'm not lacking in the energy category, but I think that when you become excited and intense, and sometimes that comes off as aggression or, too intense, right? It just comes off as aggression. So language is important, but the intensity of the language is also important. So I guess share some of that, especially when times like, business goes up and down, economies go up and down, the universe goes up and down. It's like energy too. So how do you manage the downs as as well?
Sure. I'll give you I wish I came up with it. It's not my stuff. And I want to make sure that I'm sharing who came up with this concept. A simple man by the name of Victor Frankl. And he was a gentleman, sort of social science person that survived the Auschwitz Nazi concentration camps, and his family did not. And so he's got my attention because this is a guy that had to live life. And he came out of that with a thought, and amazing thinking, but a great thought. And that is, between stimulus and response is a space.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in 2021, 2022 and forward, one of the top 5 leadership skills is to expand the space. So we get stimulated and we get angry. Natural, but not natural for great leaders, for leaders better than me, because they have expanded their space. They have understood the concepts of mindfulness, right? Of pausing, of getting triggered, all of these concepts. So between stimulus and response is a space. And I think for me now, we're working with a lot of leaders to just keep expanding that space, right? Do I respond, or do I, intentionally, or do I react sort of reactionally?
Is that a muscle that we can, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's the goal.
Is that a muscle that we can all work on and improve?
100%, 100%. You see, some of us we get angry quicker, but that doesn't mean that we can't work on that skill.
Right.
Right? Expanding the space is personal to us. And I think we can work on it every day.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, what is one thing that people can do as they're listening to say, man, I'm so reactive. If I could take away this one thing and do this one thing, it'll improve my ability to increase that gap between.
Yeah, there's a lady that has wrote a book, and Mel, it'll come to me.
Mel Robbins? Is it Mel Robbins?
Mel Robbins. And she just says 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, there you go, right? Guys.
When she gets triggered, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I like, and we've got the 6 mindset model. We have what's called the neutral zone, and my trigger is go to neutral.
Right.
So Ryan, go to neutral. I don't have to be positive. I can come out of negativity by going to neutral. And so that's my trigger. I say to myself all the time, okay, Ryan, go to neutral. That expands my space, gives me more time to be intentional instead of reactional.
Let me ask you, for you personally, how do you, because part of the Rich Equations pillars is routine, and the reason why routine is so important, in fact, you've hit 3 of the major pillars. For us, we have 5 pillars, but energy, routine, and awareness are 3 of the pillars. And I have those 3 pillars. A lot of the reasons you just talked about is that, we can't do what we want. We can't get the results we want without energy, right? We have to be able to create energy. And how do we do that, right? And I think that it's really fascinating to study super successful people and understand what is their routine. Do you have a morning routine that allows you to harness that energy and prepare yourself for, the day or get the results you want? So do you have something specific that you do on a daily or monthly? What does your routine look like?
Yeah. I really believe in that. I mean, the morning routine, the evening routine, it really, I call them bookends, right? It's the bookend of your life, really. My wife, Jen, and I have come up with a routine in the morning where we're up at 5:30 every morning. And Jenny's amazing. She pops out of bed. I don't pop out of bed quite as quick as she does. But Jenny has got coffee, and we sit in bed and we do some computer stuff. We do a lot of reading. For us, our faith journey is important to our relationship. So we'll actually spend some time having conversation together, reading certain, scriptures or things like that. And that gets us started. I gotta say though, a big part of our morning routine, because we get up so early, is coffee. We love coffee. So it's our way to start. And I see it as a slow start. We think that, for us, we need a slow start and we need a slow stop. And so in the evenings, Jenny and I gear down, we'll eat dinner. Remember, our kids are all grown up and they've got, we've got grandkids. So it's most of the time, it's just Jen and I. So we have a slow stop also. And that will include lots of work. We'll work through to, 7 o'clock at night. Some nights we'll make dinner together. We might be eating at 7:30. We might be eating at 8:30. We could do a better job of trying to eat earlier, but we sort of like that. And then for Jen and I, it's really just, a simple, murder mystery or something like that, where we can have a slow stop, right? We're just, we're slowing down. It's our way to relax in the evening. So I believe in the bookends. I think they're powerful. And I believe that people shouldn't adopt ours, but they should absolutely develop their own.
I like that a lot. I mean, I think that for most people, and we're not really taught that. We're not really taught, and I've recently just learned how powerful routine is in my life. My parents, I would say, were really disciplined about their routine, but I never grew up that way. Not that they didn't teach me, but I never just built the habits and the routines to be able to consistently start a morning, building the momentum I needed, and then slowing the momentum down. And I think a lot of people, including a lot of people here listening, probably wake up in the morning, grab their cell phone, to put their cell phone down and pass out. And that's their day. That's their schedule. And I think that we learned that that is sustainable, and we can go faster and we can do more and we'll accomplish more if the second we wake up, we grab our cell phone and we read emails until we go to bed. But I think that the truth is that it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
And if you're really trying to achieve long-term success, you have to be able to build routine and have more impact in a shorter amount of time than diluted impact in a longer period of time. You agree with that?
Agreed. And, another thing that sort of, I think is, probably underneath all of this is this concept of growth. So do we, in our routine, do we have, are we planning to read, books and listen to Audible and how do we grow? Is really the question is it podcasts? Is it how do we grow? And I think that has to get into the routine. And the reason is that if we don't plan that, then we'll go, 2 or 3 years and we'll think, I'm just the same.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of the podcast like yours is to help stretch people into the future self that they desire instead of the future self that they get. And so that part of that piece of growth, I think, is a powerful underpinning for everything that we do within the routine.
What question do you get asked the most?
It's interesting. As an NHL player, I got asked a really cool question. This is not the most. I need to think about that. But I got asked a cool question after we won a Stanley Cup. And this is the only time I was ever asked this question. So I'll answer that one first. The question was, when you were a kid, had you ever visioned winning a Stanley Cup? And, that was such a good question because I'm a kid from Burnaby, British Columbia, right? It just rains in Burnaby and there's no outdoor ice. So we were playing ball hockey. We weren't playing real hockey. And you'd shoot a ball top corner through the goalie's arm or something. And, you'd go, yeah, Stanley Cup winning goal. Like I'd done that thousands of times. And so one of the keys that I learned from that concept, from that question, was this idea, the power of, preparation, mental preparation, seeing ourselves do what we're going to do. A guy by the name of Cialdini said this. He's a doctor in influence. He said this: it's what you do before what you do that counts. And I love that thought. And we work with leaders and high performers and sales teams to really study the preparation, the what we do, the visualization, right? The idea of being in flow as we head into the best parts of our business.
I love that.
What question have I been asked most? Wow, that's a good question.
Well, before you answer that, and I'll give you some time to think about it as you answer this question, is that, I love the idea that how important it is to visualize. And I've started to learn this more and more recently. And we don't talk about visualization in business. You talk a lot about it in sports, right? You talk a lot about watch yourself running down the track, watch yourself shooting that goal, watch yourself shoot the football or the basketball or what have you, visualize it going through and winning. But we don't talk about that in business or generally in life. And I think that there's this, social movement talking about visual boards and mind movies and things like that. What do you coach people and support them to help visualize either the success of their business or are you talking about kind of, visualize the person you want to be, not the person you are today. Visualize the person you want to be and it'll manifest. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, totally. In business, we recommend to leaders, high performers, to journal. And that's how we can get away with visualizing. I think if you and I were to sit in our chair during our business day for a couple hours and have our eyes closed, I think people would start to go, what's going on in there? That's probably not going to work out. But when we're writing in our journal about our future self and about our future, the future of our company, and about the holiday that we want, and about the kids that we want, and the marriage we want, all of those things get us to where we want to go. You see, a lot of people think about stuff, but they don't write it down. You know, you and I could have a business plan in our head, but we probably don't act on that business plan until we actually put it into either, you know, a computer or on a piece of paper. So really the idea of writing is a powerful way to visualize as a business. Now, the other thing I'd fire at you is when we think of sort of this idea of future, you know, future self or future, we like to call it our future positive self, is that we want to make sure that we're not always looking back. I think this is the opposite of it, is to think that everything that we've done in our past, especially our past negatives, actually end up creating the person we are today. Now, science is saying recently that the biggest impact on who we are today, on our present self, is how we see our future self, not our past self. So our past self, you know, when you think about it, we can reframe the negativity of our past. We can see it through a learning lens and say, yeah, I screwed up there, but I'm going to get better. I can do this to get better. The goal is rather to pre-frame our future. What do we want to look like? What does our business want to look like, right? What's our physique want to look like? What does our marriage want to look like? And that way, when we pre-frame things, we actually create positive expectations today to do that.
So what you're saying is it's actually more important to visualize the future as a pulling momentum to get you there than to look in the past and learn from those lessons or reframe what happened to you or deal with your traumas. The actual forward trajectory of being able to deeply visualize your future can actually have more of an impact on your present being. That's so powerful.
That's what science is saying right now.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Most people look backwards and say, I'm a screw up. And then they live today as a screw up.
That's right.
Right? For years, we have been influenced by what we did. And isn't it beautiful to think of ourselves, rather, the energy we have today needs to be much more generated in a bigger term by where we want to go and by who we want to be.
I love that. I always say that, you know, you have the pull needs to be so strong that you just can't stop.
Love it.
You know?
I love your idea of pull. I hadn't thought of that. So pull and push.
That's right. It's got to pull you. It's got to keep you moving forward, right? The pulls, but I've just started thinking more about visualization recently and how to create that visualization to be more visceral. I actually would suggest all CEOs to sit right in the middle of their entire business floor and meditate in front of all their employees, because I think it's so visceral to see that and feel that energy within the company. But I love journaling as well. I guess, you're so knowledgeable about leadership and communication. What do you wish you knew 20, 25 years ago?
Oh, so many things. So many things. I mean, I wish that I could have expanded my space quicker. You know, I said some words to an NHL general manager in Washington, D.C., and I was traded 4 days later. You know, I'd love to have those words back, right? But I'm really pleased with the journey that my creator has me on and the direction. You know, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. But I guess what I've learned is that there's a couple ways to learn. There's 3 ways to learn. I can learn from my mistakes. I can learn from, information, books and podcasts like this. And then I can also learn from other people. And so I've tried to, instead of making the mistake, I'm still a risk taker. I love taking risks, but I've been much more into learning, from autobiographies, from great books, from people, from podcasts. And I love that knowledge that turns into wisdom when we understand how to apply it. And so I wish, if I was to look back, I wish that I could have accelerated those two, learning from other people and learning from literature, and maybe decelerated some of the mistakes that I made.
A lot of your content and knowledge is about how leaders can show up, how they can improve, how they are being, how they are communicating. What advice do you have for, let's say, the education system or society at large or other leaders when it comes to educating other leaders, educating future leaders, educating leaders that are going to run the world 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? What advice do you have for those people preemptively?
Yeah, I love that. I think the word that comes to mind is credibility. A lot of people say things and they expect people to listen and apply quickly. But most people that either teach or train or lead or whatever don't look at the information through the eyes of the student. And what the student sees first is you. So if we do not have credibility, if we have low credibility in the eyes of our students, then what we say doesn't have impact. And so one of the things that we work with leaders across the world around is, do you know your credibility score that other people have for you? and how can you increase that credibility score, at every level of your business through, with every person in your business? Now, does that mean that we have to be nice and empathetic and all of that? Well, it helps. But some people, they don't want your empathy. They actually want to be held accountable. And if you don't hold them accountable, then you're not credible. So credibility is not, it's a word that we're not hearing a lot in leadership development. As a matter of fact, I don't know, and I say this humbly, I don't know another leadership development company that has high focus on credibility. And yet without credibility, you can't lead.
It's so interesting, right? I love that word and the way you frame that. Simon Sinek put out a message or a YouTube video a couple of years ago that got a lot of traction about how basically the burden of managing millennials is our problem. And what he meant was that we need to stop blaming this, and this was a few years ago, so I apologize if I'm a little outdated, but we need to stop blaming millennials for being millennials. We need to take ownership. We need to, and I'm a millennial, but still, the credibility, the ownership, the responsibility of leading these people and becoming the next generation of leaders is on us. And I like that perspective. I think it's much more empowering, correct? I also feel like, you talk about who are our teachers of this topic, right? We talk about teachers in school, we talk about parents, maybe we talk about our bosses. Most people are not even taught this. That you need to build your own credibility so that they learn from you on how to be a good leader and pass it on. And I think most people are not really taught to be managers or leaders. We end up promoting most of the time good workers into managers, but they actually are just great workers, and we have to teach, right? Which is why, you have a successful career.
I think you're right. And one of the things that we love about our industry is that every single company, organization, sports team in the world is our play place, right?
That's right.
Everybody has to increase the capacity of leadership throughout their company, or they're going to go under eventually. So you're right. We're in the right industry. We have the right opportunity there. But I would go back to credibility just for a quick second. I think that the idea of credibility in with a leadership focus or a leadership sort of angle is really something that that upper leaders need to understand and look at and help. And I say this carefully. Younger leaders, like you said with the millennials, to help them understand how to develop their credibility, how to utilize their credibility, and not how to abuse it. People have to see us as real before they're going to follow us, right? Because otherwise, and you and I all both know this, we've had bosses in our past where we just go, yeah, it's just a hypocrite. So are we going to fully follow that boss? We'll do what he says. We'll basically come to work, but we won't come to win. And so the concept of credibility helps to fill that gap. And I think it's having a high awareness on what credibility is and how my credibility affects the team, because it can be different in every culture. And then how can I grow my credibility? Final thought on credibility. What I find fascinating is once we do what we do and say what we say, credibility, we lose control of credibility. Credibility sits in the perception or in the mind of our people.
That's fascinating. I never really thought about it that way. It's really powerful. Super good. Thanks for doing this. Let me ask you one final question, and unless you have anything else you want to bring up, but for you, what does rich mean to you?
Well, first thing that comes to mind is relationships, is family. We have 5 amazing kids. We have 5 amazing grandkids. I've got lots of this gray hair up here. Jenny and I just love family. I mean, we always have, but I think that as you grow and I don't feel like we're getting any older, but as we age a bit, family gets heightened. Those relationships get even more important. So certainly relationships, certainly family. But I love where your podcast goes, because Jen and I just walked through this. We took a period of time, about 10 months, I'm going to say, and we divested of everything. So we sold the house, we sold the condo, we sold the boat. We sold everything. During COVID, everybody wanted to buy these things, so we sold them. And we put our money into the market. We did really well. We're very thankful. But here's what hit us. Growing money is awesome, but we find that having the exact beautiful home that we want to live in every day is a better use of our money. And in Canada, the net profit of your home is tax exempt. So we would rather put our money into a beautiful home that we love every day than put our money into the market where we never see it, we never touch it. We get a return, which is good, but for us, that's profitability, right? And I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that, because I think it sort of comes down to the things that we prioritize, right? Is increase in wealth important? Sure it is. We all want that to happen. But when we looked at the difference between that and then the ability to have a home on the water where grandkids and kids can come and relax and be with us, then that was the priority of our life. And we're seeing that play out right now.
I love that. It's all about experience. The money is useless if you can't experience what you want. That's so powerful. Well, listen, I sincerely appreciate everything and your time and all of your knowledge and what you're doing to help leaders and transform the world. It's a really noble work that you do. and it's just so powerful, and it's so relatable, and it's so easy. It almost makes it super, super easy. So I just want to honor you and thank you. And for the listeners, tell us how people can find you.
Thank you. Probably the simplest way is ryanwalter.com. That's pretty simple. Or a quick email. I love connecting with people by email and phone. So over Zoom, so ryan@ryanwalter.com comes directly to me.
So good. Well, listen, listeners, this was such a great episode. I really appreciate you guys listening. Definitely leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you have any other questions, and reach out to Ryan Walter. This was such a great episode. We learned so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks so much, Ashish.